Imagine you were minding your own business, living your everyday life, but all of a sudden, your world gets invaded by aliens, destroying life as you knew it. This alien does not care about you or your family and takes everything that belongs to you in order for it to survive. Unfortunately, this is a scary reality for many native species and environments around the planet that have been impacted by invasive species, and humans are the primary reason. According to the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, more than 37,000 species have been introduced by human activities to regions and biomes around the world, many of which threaten nature, nature's contributions to people, and quality of life for every species on the planet. But what even is an invasive species? While many have heard the term, not everyone knows exactly what defines one. An invasive species is a non-native organism that establishes and spreads aggressively in an ecosystem, causing harm to the environment. Typically, an invasive species is a species that outcompetes native organisms for resources like food, habitat, and space, resulting in a disruption of balance in the ecosystem. In many cases, they can interfere with ecosystem functions and processes, such as nutrient cycling, predator and prey dynamics, and water flow patterns, which can have cascading effects on the ecosystem health. A famous example of this is the European rabbit in Australia. Rabbits were first brought to Australia by European settlers in the 18th century for food and sport hunting. However, without natural predators and facing a favorable environment, rabbits quickly multiplied and spread across the continent. As one would expect, these rabbits were hungry. Consequently, rabbits in Australia worsened food shortages and habitat degradation for native herbivores like kangaroos and wallabies, resulting in population declines and ecosystem imbalances as they compete for resources. However, not all species introduced to a new habitat become invasive. In some cases, foreign species may not have any negative impact to the environment, such as fish introduced for sport fishing in lakes. However, a species becomes invasive when it starts causing detrimental effects such as damaging the habitat, disrupting ecological balance, or posing health risks to humans. One of the main factors contributing to the negative impacts of invasive species is the absence of co-evolutionary history with native species. In natural ecosystems, predators and prey evolve together, with each side adapting to outsmart the other. Invasive predators lacking this evolutionary relationship can decimate native prey that haven't had time to develop defenses against them. Like many problems with environments around the world, the extremity of invasive species can be attributed to humans. International trade and travel are two human activities that greatly contribute to the spread of invasive species. In some cases, people intentionally bring non-native species into new areas, like for gardening or farming, or to keep as pets. Inevitably, some of these species will get loose and consequently harm the environment. One example is the Asian carp in North America. This invasive fish species in North America was introduced for aquaculture and wastewater treatment purposes, but escaped into natural waterways, where they rapidly multiplied. The presence of Asian carp has had detrimental effects on native ecosystems and fisheries. They outcompete native fish for food and space, leading to declines in native fish populations. Additionally, their feeding habits disrupt aquatic vegetation and alter water quality, impacting the overall health of aquatic ecosystems. Now you may be wondering, what does this say about humans? And what does Pope Francis think about all of this? Well, firstly, the introduction of native species due to human selfishness reflects the anthropocentric culture in modern society. Anthropocentrism is the ethical belief that humans alone possess intrinsic value and are at the center of importance. In Laudato Si, Pope Francis criticizes this widespread belief, arguing that this mindset has led to environmental degradation and exploitation of Earth's resources. This relates to our topic because humans will often do things to benefit themselves, even if it comes at the expense of nature and the environment. Thus, anthropocentrism is well exemplified by the introduction of Asian carp to North America, which was brought for aquaculture treatment purposes but ultimately resulted in large-scale damages to the environment. In an attempt to eradicate invasive species, people might change or damage the environment. Sometimes people use strong chemicals like pesticides or herbicides to kill invasive species, but these chemicals can also harm other plants, animals, and even people, and they might stick around in the environment for a long time. Humans might also introduce non-native predators to control invasive species. However, these introduced predators can also prey on native species, leading to declines in native populations and disrupting natural ecosystems. These quick and easy fixes reflect Pope Francis's criticism of the prevailing culture of economic priority that prioritizes profit and economic growth over environmental sustainability. In Laudato Si, Pope Francis says, "Human beings frequently seem to see no other meaning to their natural environment than what serves for immediate use and consumption. Because of this economic priority culture, the financial disincentive to take action against invasive species often leads to limited efforts in preventing and combating their spread, allowing for invasive species to continue to thrive and dominate their environments." That said, you're probably wondering, how can I help? Firstly, it is important to stay conscious of your own actions to make sure that you are not accidentally contributing to invasive species. One way to stay safe is by making sure that the things you bring into a new environment are clean of any pests that might be clinging on. Also, that goldfish that you don't want anymore, do not release it into a pond so that it can live a full life, because ultimately it will do way more harm than good. And it will turn into this. Speaking of fish, if you are fishing but want to release your live bait, make sure that the species of bait that you are releasing is native to the water that you are releasing it in. Another thing you can do, if you have the spare time, is to volunteer at your local park, refuge, or other wildlife area to help remove invasive species. Invasive plants in particular are such a big problem in practically every ecosystem that there is always an invasive plant to be picked. If you are not yet convinced that you should help prevent invasive species, it is important to remember Pope Francis' idea of interconnectedness. In Laudato Si', Pope Francis emphasizes the interconnectedness of all life on Earth, reinforcing the idea that everything in the natural world is interdependent and mutually supportive. It is easy to see invasive species damage another ecosystem and say, well, how does this affect me? But Pope Francis' teachings remind us that negative impacts to any environment will affect all of us in one way or another. If anything, this should serve as a reminder that it is our duty to combat invasive species.